pleased to be here, and I see a lot of faces that I know, so that's pretty neat. Get to know or get to see some people I know. I'm also pretty happy to be doing this presentation with my old boss and mentor, Jim Larson. I worked for him for a lot of years and learned a lot of things from him. Learned a lot of things from him I can't talk about here, or maybe even at home sometimes. But we had a good time working with Jim, and he was a great mentor. So I think how we designed this talk was past, present, and future, and we baited you a little bit, or I baited you a little bit with the future part, because most of it's on the past and present. You can't really predict the future too much, right? You know, in especially the way industry is today, but we'll talk a little bit about what we're looking at for the future. So that's what we have to look forward to tonight. Before we get started, though, I do want to take just a minute to get to know the audience and understand your knowledge about Waupaca Foundry. So I'm looking for 5 things from the audience that you either know about Waupaca Foundry, things you think you know. Maybe it's just barroom talk or church talk or hair salon talk, but 5 volunteers to pop something out that says, yep, this is what I know about Waupaca Foundry. Okay.
It's the other side of the river.
It's on the other side of the river? That's a fact. I might even tell you if they're fact or fiction. Okay. Biggest foundry in the country. That's a fact. Number 3, Eileen. The best foundry in the country. Okay, let's hear it for the best foundry in the country. That is true. One more volunteer. Okay. 3 plants in Waupaca. That is almost true. And I'll tell you about that in a little bit. Okay, thanks for those volunteers. That's good to know. And I think a lot of the group probably does know a fair amount about Waupaca Foundry, and when we started to put the talk together, I was kind of thinking, okay, I don't want to bore this group with things they already know. But then on the other side of the coin, when Jim and I talked, we said, you know what, we shouldn't take it for granted that this group knows everything about Waupaca Foundry, because a lot of things that we hear about in town either maybe just aren't quite true, or maybe way off base. We thought, okay, let's tell them everything that we can within 45 minutes anyway about Waupaca Foundry. I'm going to stay. I might not stand directly behind this because I'm not that tall. I don't know if you noticed that yet or not. So I might be walking around a little bit. But anyhow, before we get into the presentation, with Jim talking about the history, this right here is a little bit about Waupaca Foundry, past, present, and future. Anybody recognize this guy? Or this guy? How about this guy? This guy's in the room tonight, over here. Mr. Gary Thoe. This young man's in the room tonight. He's our speaker as well, Jim Larson. He was young then. This guy, Don Brunner, was with hair and without hair. He was the chief here for a while. All right. So let's begin by taking a look at the broad picture of our history, which takes us from our beginning year of 1955, when we had about $100,000 in sales, to today when we are nearly $1.8 billion with a B. So many significant events occurred in our early years, and Jim will take us back to look at some of them in just a minute. However, before we do that, I would like to point out a couple of key dates shown on this chart. And as you can see here, the company was founded in 1955. By 1966, you see on there it says Plant 2 built and vertical molding. Waupaca Foundry began the use of the vertical molding process. I'll talk about that later on in the talk and the significance of that. Many of our employees have modified and improved that vertical molding process throughout the years, and that process combined with our people's innovation has really helped to make Waupaca Foundry the most productive iron foundry in North America and we think the world. In 1969, the Bud Company purchased Waupaca Foundry, and they gave us the capital that really fueled our growth. And then in '78, Thyssen AG purchased the Bud Company, which increased the capital availability even more for Waupaca Foundry. In '99, Thyssen and Krupp merged, and that's when Waupaca Foundry became known as Thyssen Krupp Waupaca. The company kept that official name, although everyone still knew us as Waupaca Foundry or just the Foundry, but that name was kept until 2012 when we were purchased by KPS Capital Partners. So there's some other key dates on there, which include 97, or actually 73, where the fourth foundry was built in Marinette, Wisconsin. 97 was a greenfield facility in Tell City, Indiana. That was eventually expanded or doubled in size in '99. And then 2001 was the Etowah, Tennessee facility. Another very important date on this chart is 1991 when Kaizen was introduced. I won't spend a lot of time on that right now, but Kaizen is we talked a little bit about it at dinner tonight. It's a form of continuous improvement that was really the name pioneered by the Japanese, and that's what got our employees very involved in our process. And we could spend hours talking about Kaizen, but that was a very key date in our company. So throughout the years, the relationship with our ownership has been one where we've been able to manage our company almost independent, although that did become a little bit difficult in the later years with ThyssenKrupp. For the most part, our parent companies have been very supportive by supplying capital to us, and we've been very successful at providing them with an excellent return on their investment. We continue to have our own local management group, our own set of benefits, compensation, and our own very special relationship with our employees. So Jim's going to come up and talk about our history, give us a little bit of color on how we got to where we are today. And so Jim will be up here about 15 or 20 minutes, which is good because he's got his talk prepared already because he's retired. I got to spend the next 20 minutes writing mine. So Jim, come on up.
Well, thank you, Dave. Joey, good evening. One of the greatest aspects of the success of Waupaca Foundry is the part that the city of Waupaca played in that success. It was true throughout many decades, but never more true than the early days. And speaking of the early days, this was our original plant in 1955. I lived up on Elm Street, and my path for many years walking to school used to take me by this facility. And every time I went by there, I said, I don't know what's going on there, but I can't imagine it's ever going to amount to much. But fortunately, there were people in this community who had more foresight than I did. Its location was just across the footbridge that connects South Division with North Division. For those of you who are street challenged, that's kind of the west side of it is near the present-day entrance of T.J. Martin's. The other side of the bridge is where the foundry was. So, how did it ever occur that Cliff Schwen, a successful manager at Brilliant Foundry and the primary investor in Waupaca Foundry, and Don Brunner, who worked with him there for a few years, decided to come to Waupaca Foundry to run this business? Cliff was, of course, the first CEO of Waupaca. Don succeeded him in the early 1970s and held that position until 1997 when he retired and Gary Tho took over. Gary and I could tell you a lot of stories about working for Don, but that would take up more time than we have here tonight. Suffice it to say that he was a type A, strong-minded, impatient, but fair manager who expected results, good ones. And he usually got them. Before he died in 2007, I had the opportunity to talk with Don get the story straight about the early days. So I asked him, I said, how did it happen that you and Swen decided to come here and take over this foundry? I was really thinking what were you thinking? What he told me was that while he was working with Cliff at Brillion as a newly graduated mechanical engineer whose job was to improve productivity in Brillion's core room, Cliff told Don that his son needed to complete a report on designing a business, including the selection of a site for it. His son, an architect student, decided for this project, because his dad was in the foundry business, that he would get his project about being a foundry. So about that same time, there were a group of people becoming active in Waupaca who had begun an effort to affect the economic future of our community. In 1953, this group of business people decided that something had to be done, or Waupaca would never be anything but a retirement community with little future economically. So they formed the Waupaca Industrial Development Corporation, or WIDC. The leader of that group was E.T. Webb, who owned the Bratwurst, which became Katie's, and now is known as Cronies, next to Simpson's. As a result, Waupaca was one of the few places around that was prepared to provide information on wages, population, utilities, and other pieces of the puzzle needed to create this study. So this drew the attention of Don and Cliff's son, who's also named Don. And using this information, Cliff's son completed his site plan and plant design. Don told me that the original design placed the foundry between the railroad tracks and the golf course. That might not have been the most welcome place for it, considering the sophistication of our emission control system in those days. Let's see. You can see this would be it right here. So I'm pretty sure that some of the more influential club members would have put a kibosh to that. So in the process, Cliff learned of a small foundry, very small, that was already established in Waupaca, which belonged at the time to a gentleman by the name of Charles Dombrowski. I think you would be interested to know that prior to that, the very same foundry, first foundry activity began on this site in 1923 when Leo Nemeth started a small foundry operation. He left it during World War II and then worked as a welder for a while because he could make more money doing that than running this little foundry. But he came back to Waupaca to restart it and sold it to Dombrowski. Shortly thereafter, and backing up a little, Nemeth only had a couple of people working for him, and his son would occasionally come out and help, and that was Bob Nemeth, who I'm sure many of you have done business with at Nemeth's Steak and Chop Shop in the past. Currently it's being run by his two sons, Bobby and Roger, I believe, and there's a third son, but I don't happen to know his name. And by the way, Bob was an active member of WIDC for many years. So okay, back to the Waupaca Foundry story. It was shortly after that, sale to Dombrowski had taken place, that Cliff learned that Dombrowski had a heart attack and that he might be interested in selling his business. So Cliff borrowed $25,000 on his life insurance to make the purchase and asked Don to come with him to Waupaca, but we don't think, he showed him this picture of this building before that. But Gary likes to say that Cliff was a hell of a salesman. So there were 13 people, as Dave said, who worked there when Cliff and Don took over. A little later that same year, Don added to the workforce by hiring a young man named Gary Tho. So Don had some good foresight too. The arrangement that Cliff and Don had was that Cliff would handle the sales and administration part of the company, and Don would run the operations, handle engineering, and he told me that he was also the personnel manager, and Joey said that was the most interesting part of his job. Let's see which device is which. This is late in Waupaca Foundry's first year of operation. The WIDC helped them purchase the Fullerton Lumber Company and for expansion and the eventual relocation of the foundry and to function as its corporate offices. It was where Plant 1 now stands. This is where several of us, including me, when I first joined the foundry in 1972, had our office. It remained our office until 1976 and looked just exactly like this, except the cars got a little newer. And eventually, we relocated to our site now where plants 2 and 3 are. In 1956, Cliff reported to the WIDC that the new operation was successful and it now employed 45 people. With that, the WIDC promised to build the company a new building in the rear area of Plant 1, that Plant 1 site I just showed you, to allow it to grow. And here you can see the stack going up for the new cupola that would be part of the new venture. Back up a little. And here is a new cope and drag molding building at Plant 1, constructed in 1957, which was funded with $213,000 in debenture bonds sold by WIDC. And of course, many of those bonds were purchased by people from our community. It had 9,600 square feet. What's our smallest plant now, Joey? 120,000 or so? One by one, landmarks surrounding Plant 1 began to disappear as we grew. And this is the old potato and egg warehouse, which is located where the current Plant 1 casting warehouse is. If you are familiar where Elm Street meets Water Street, it was our building is right up to the corner there. This building was pretty close to that site. Before that, Whitney's feed mill came down, and I don't know if you can see it, but it was located right back here. And it was in operation for most of the years that our offices were still there. Our Plant 1 expansion following the acquisition of those properties was now limited by the road that ran in front of our plant. We were interested in once more approaching the city of Waupaca for help to relocate the road, but we could not do that. In order to do that, we needed to acquire this property that this building sat on, owned by Evan Durant, which was connected to a larger wooden structure that once was a feed mill, and also belonged to Mr. Durant. It was too large. It was a very large building, two-story wooden structure that many of us as kids ran around in without permission when we were young. However, he wasn't sure about selling, as he said he enjoyed running his business there. It might have been a negotiation ploy, not sure. One afternoon, we had important visitors from the Bud corporate office. Don, Gary, and I were taking them around. This was, like as I said, a Friday afternoon on a tour. They were our parent company, and at the time we usually used these events as an opportunity to sell them on expansion ideas, as they approved our capital for most of these type of adventures. And they were usually happy to do so, as Joey says, because we gave them great returns on their investments. So we told them that one of those ideas was to expand Plant 1 to the west, but we would need to acquire the Durant property to do that, and that he didn't want to sell right now. They said, well, if you can't buy that building across the road, you should have someone burn it down. They were just joking, of course. But that very night, I got a call from my mother, who still lived up on Elm Street, telling me that there was this big fire down at Plant 1. And when we all went to check, sure enough, it was the Evan Durant building, and that large structure made a hell of a fire, I can tell you that. So, on Monday, we called the Bud people up and said, well, we did it. They didn't believe us, so we sent them some pictures. I want to make it perfectly clear. We had nothing to do with it. But the people at Bud were a little upset. I'm not altogether sure if they were upset mainly because they thought we might have done it, or we were so stupid to document it. One of the two. But as I recall later, it was found that a wiring problem had been to blame. But that incident did lead to our eventual ability to purchase that property and to work with with the city to relocate the road so that the plant could be redone and expanded to its present size. I don't know how many of you would remember, but the former road ran pretty much right through here. And all this is expansion all through here. It brought out our cleaning room, our storage area, and our lunchroom came out farther, and then the rest of made room for the rest of the plant. And the way this came about was that we approached the city about the possibility to move the road, and they went to work to get grants for it from the state. By the way, I recall that Archie Overby from the First National Bank helped me get the original communication going with the city. So we worked with the city officials on the political side of things to get state funding as part of the jobs program. And as a result, they were not only successful in getting money for the road, but the city was able to combine the project with building a new Water Street bridge, as the old one was becoming obsolete. I don't think you can see it, but it would be, oh yeah, this is the bridge right here. And this is right about through here is where all the Durant property was. And right behind you can't see it, there was an old dam, ugly cement thing I'm going to say something more about in a second. So like I say, when we became owners of that dam, and we eventually got the DNR and the Army Corps of Engineers permission to remove it and return the river back to its natural state. And for those of you who remember before and after, it's a much nicer looking area now. So now this plant has 526, or 500 plus people, is it 26? 560 some, as compared to the 45 when Cliff reported. And again, it was from help from the city, which we very much appreciated. Plant 1 through the years has made a variety of parts for agriculture, construction, hydraulics, passenger car, heavy truck, material handling, power tools, power transmission, off-highways, and a number of other things. And through the years, because expansion not only helped people there, but we introduced a lot of new parts to our company through this plant that ended up being work for other plants. So, one thing that you may not know is that in the late 1950s, Don and Cliff had an idea to gain more income for the company by developing and marketing a boat that could act as its own trailer as the wheels would crank up. Oh, by the way, this is Don's, oh, did it again. This is, wrong hand. This is Don's old Nash Rambler. And in the early days, I understand that he actually delivered casting to some of our customers in the back of that. Don told me that this really wasn't one of their more brilliant ideas, and any thoughts of becoming another Chris Craft were pretty short-lived. But it gives you an idea of a sense of the kind of things that these entrepreneurs were willing to try to keep this business going. One of those boats was still running around the Chain Lakes till about 15 years ago. Let's see if I can get this right. Okay. Another important growth step occurred in the 1960s with the construction of the first Plant 2 building located in the city's new industrial park, where our Plants 2 and 3 are located today, along with our central offices. Funding for it was also supported with WIDC and issuance of debenture bonds amounting to $368,000. Additional WIDC activities for this location included a 1983 bond issuance for $250,000 for the expansion, another expansion, and the financing of environmental impact study at the Royal Oaks property, known as the old charcoal plant, so the city could obtain it and then sell it to us, and so that we could use it for future expansion. That property is all the land near the buildings on the east side. This is a pretty current picture of the location today. Right over here, over in this area is where the land was. It used to belong to, there was actually a charcoal factory over there. The typical products made at Plant 2 are for agriculture, construction, heating, mid and heavy truck and material handling markets. Plant 3 mainly serves the automobile industry, and as Joy says, is the most productive disc brake manufacturing facility in the world. This then is a summary of the help that we received from WIDC, but there is a lot more to our story than just that. There have been countless times the City Council, either in concert with WIDC or acting separately, has come to our aid, including that road relocation I mentioned. Then is the tremendous cooperation that we've had from the Water Department, the City Engineering Office, the Airport Committee, other city agencies, and we've enjoyed the support of the County Board and County Government. I'm told that there was a time when the county equipment was used to erect some of our buildings, and until we could afford our own erection equipment. I suppose that in this day and age that might have to be handled a little differently. We've had the opportunity to work closely with our local school system to provide training such as welding classes and use their facilities for other special training events. And we've had experienced great cooperation with our local hospital, which I think is the finest, one of the finest small community hospitals in Wisconsin. There have been occasions where our local police force and county officers have been a help, and the Foundry certainly have had the cooperation of the Waupaca Fire Department. It goes on, including individual citizen help, which brings me to one last old days example. Is about a story about a time when a new piece of cleaning equipment arrived at Plant 1, and they wanted cash on delivery. No doubt they had seen our original location. Cliff and Don didn't have the money, so they gave the driver some story and got the trucker to wait a while, and then they ran down to the Farmer State Bank to borrow the money. Now, the bank had been very supportive up to this time, but the president informed them that the board would have to approve this loan as they already had quite a bit of debt with them already. That was going to take too long for the situation they were in, but just then Les Farragon, who was running the Ford dealership in town with Roy Wendt, came by, heard the story, and said he would guarantee the loan personally. So with that, they got a check and they went back and were able to pay for this equipment that was critical to them. So, like I said, the Foundry owes the city and the people in it a lot. Hopefully the jobs for thousands of families provided by the Foundry and the overall financial health the company has provided for Waupaca has paid them back. Yeah. Oh, I don't know all the names. I know Tom Godfrey was very, very involved, and I don't know if he's going to be here tonight. I really can't. I'm guessing some of the characters I probably mentioned were involved, Farragon and those guys. But I don't actually know. I was on it for a long time, but that was long afterwards.
So what a great look at the history, I think. Thanks, Jim. I love history anyway, as Rachel can tell you. So that's my favorite part. I could listen to that story time and time again, and but it's pretty neat. But let's talk a little bit about so that's kind of the past. So talk a little bit about the present. So from those humble beginnings, and it seemed like it was pretty humble beginnings when Jim shows that first picture, we continued to grow, eventually with a new plant in Marinette, Wisconsin in the 70s. Another new plant was constructed in Tell City, Indiana, as I said earlier, in 97. Eventually that was doubled in size. And then in Etowah, Tennessee, in 2001. Now the Tell City, Indiana plant, I think Jim and Gary told or promised the economic development people in Indiana that we would be at about, hopefully be at about what, 250 people is what the grand plan was? Okay, 250 in the first phase and then 500 total. So they were excited as all heck, right? I mean, they thought, wow, this is going to be a really big operation. We want you guys to come here. So today we're at almost 1,000 people there. So I think they're pretty happy now. have just a quick discussion on each of the plants. Jim talked a fair amount about Plant 1. Plant 1 today has about 567 employees, 275,000 square feet, compared to the new facility at Plant 2 that Jim showed a picture of or at Plant 1, it was about less than 10,000 square feet. So the size of the plant itself has gotten quite a bit larger. We make a lot of different parts at Plant 1. Castings range in size from 2 to 100 pounds. Here's the Plant 2-3 operation. This addresses the question that I said, well, we kind of have 3 plants in Waupaca. This is the Plant 2 and 3 location. It shares the same melt facility. So really, it's all under one roof and one foundry. And we've actually combined it several years ago for financial purposes. There's one plant manager and one management team, and so we just haven't figured out a better name to call it. So we still call it Plant 2-3. Plant 3 is the most productive rotor manufacturer in the world. Plant 4. Here's Plant 4. So this is our Marinette plant. It's located on an island in the mouth of the Menominee River. So you can see, here's the river. Over on this side is Michigan. Right over here, well, actually here is Wisconsin, but that's a little island there. And the river separates Michigan and Wisconsin, and that flows into the Bay of Green Bay, which is right here. The original thought is that we would ship and receive materials by water, and that's partly the case today. We do receive a lot of pig iron that sits right over here, which comes from outside of the country. A lot of it comes from either Brazil or Russia. We produce ductile iron castings at this facility for light truck, passenger car, ag, hydraulics, and heavy truck markets. It's the most productive ductile iron foundry in the world. This was actually built on an old landfill or garbage dump, actually. So we got a lot more use out of that land than anybody ever could have gotten out of that land. Here's our plant in Tell City, Indiana. Built in a real beautiful location on the Ohio River, or just off the Ohio River. This plant was built in 2 phases. In phase 1 is where we produce gray iron castings. A lot of similar parts that are made at the Plant 3 part of the operation here in Waupaca. Primarily for the light car market and larger brake drums for the heavy truck market. This is the plant that we produce a lot of the parts for Toyota. There's a Toyota plant in southern Indiana, and we produce 100% of the Toyota brake rotors are made in the cars that are made in the U.S. are made right here. The ductile side produces castings for the light truck, passenger car, ag, hydraulics, heavy truck, and material handling markets. Like I said, we have, that says 939. Today there's about 960 employees there. Here's our plant in Etowah, Tennessee. This is our newest plant. It's halfway between Knoxville and Chattanooga. Currently produce both gray and ductile iron castings here for the automotive and truck markets. And this plant was originally set up for expansion down here in this direction to make a Me Too and double the size. Since that original plan, we're considering many other options right now. Some through just expansion at other locations and some potential acquisitions. So that project has been put on hold. So we've grown from those 13 employees in 1955 to a company that employs more than 3,800 employees today. So that's a lot of growth since 1955. We still believe today that our greatest asset is the quality people that make up Waupaca Foundry. We were asked at dinner tonight is how does a company like Waupaca Foundry or Foundry grow to be the largest in the world in a little town like Waupaca, and how did you get to be so big, so quick in Waupaca? And I think the quick answer from Jim and I was it's the quality of the workforce. It's really like none other is the workforce in Waupaca and in the Waupaca area. And that's what we attribute most of our growth to in this area. A lot of the greenfield facilities and newer facilities that we built, we brought the employees from those locations to come to Waupaca. The original 60 employees in Tell City, for example, came and got immersed in the Waupaca Foundry culture for at least the first 3 months of their employment. And I think it made a big difference. So Waupaca Foundry has always believed in its local workforce, and to this day, one of the things that sets us apart from our competition is our promotion from within practice. In fact, I believe that that's one of the things that encourages some of our most talented employees to stay at Waupaca Foundry. We've got employees that started from literally ground floor opportunities into some fairly senior management positions. And we've got a few of them here in the room tonight. Nearly half of all of our employees, this is kind of a neat statistic, nearly half of all of our employees have been with the company more than 10 years. And that's, to me, that's a big deal. I mean, I think there's 1,900 employees that have been with us for more than 10 years. And close to 20% have been with us more than 25 years. And those numbers include all of the locations, not just Waupaca. So even our newer locations, when you roll all those employees in, we still have that longevity and that tenure. And that was actually one of the things that when we were looking at selling the company in 2012, one of the things that we talked to a lot of potential owners about was that is one of the biggest selling factors that Waupaca Foundry has over any other foundry you might be looking at is the longevity and skill of our workforce. Foundry isn't something you can learn overnight. So when we were preparing this presentation, we thought it might be important to talk about what we do and who we are. And I think sometimes we just assume that everyone already knows about what we do. But I've come to understand that even some people who've lived around here forever, they just know that we employ a lot of people. And it's pretty hot at the foundry. And they might know that we have a couple of plants in town here. So at the risk of telling you some of the details that you already know, let's take a look at who we are. Waupaca Foundry, as most good companies, have a mission statement. Waupaca Foundry, so our mission statement, this really tells the story, and I could stop after this. But Waupaca produces iron castings, and by the way, most people most of our customers just know us as Waupaca. A lot of them don't even know Waupaca is a community until they come visit here. They just think it's the name of a foundry. So, true story. So Waupaca produces iron castings, and we focus on transportation, construction, and ag industries. And we also have highlighted worldwide, and that's true. While most of our castings are shipped in North America, we are worldwide. We have probably less than 5% goes outside of North America. We are trying to grow that. We have lean manufacturing techniques. We also manage some outside value-added services for customers. We credit a lot of our success, in addition to the people, through innovative technology and continuous improvement activities. We also, within our mission statement, talk about that dedicated, motivated, and highly trained workforce. We also talk about our strong social and environmental commitment in our mission statement through green initiatives and providing a safe environment and encouraging employees' personal growth. Our mission statement is really what drives the company's operational goals. First, we want to protect our employees by providing a safe workplace. Second, we want to respect our employees by providing a workplace they can be proud to work in. And next, we satisfy our customers by providing high quality castings on time. And finally, we make the owners happy by providing a good financial return. And actually, it's not just the owners that are happy about a good financial return. The employees also benefit from good returns, and they're usually happy sometime before Christmas because part of the annual bonus is tied to earnings performance. So as the company does well, the employees benefit from that financially as well. This slide gives you an idea of the markets that Waupaca Foundry participates in. The actual percentage of our market diversity changes a little bit from year to year based on economic conditions, but in general we typically hover around 50%. You can see currently it's at 57% in the automotive, and that's higher because of the robust auto sales right now. You've probably been reading about, hearing about on TV a lot. Automotive can be more cyclical than other markets, and that's why we don't want to get too heavy in it. And also, the automotive customers can be a little bit more difficult to work with from time to time. Right, Gary? But the way our foundries are set up, they're set up to be most efficient running high volume work. So we will likely always need that high volume automotive work. You can see some of our customers listed here, and many of the customers that you see listed here you might not recognize. In our top 10 customers, you're going to recognize John Deere and Caterpillar, right? The TRW, maybe some of you heard of, Akebono, Brembo, Eisen, some of those customers, those are heavily into automotive, and those customers supply to our end customer in the automotive area. Here's kind of a list of who's who in our industries. A big shot at our customers. This slide, I thought it might be interesting for you to know a little bit about our diversity at our plants. Might be a little hard for you to read, so I'll go through it quick. This is a percentage of the markets. So plant 1 is the top bar. So what this says is the red means light vehicle, blue commercial vehicle, green off-highway, and the brownish is industrial. So that means plant 1 has 22% of their work is in light vehicle, and so on. So plant 1, as you can see just by this bar chart here, is our most diversified market plant. The plant that is heaviest in one area is plant 3, which is part of the plant 2-3 complex. So you put those together, they've got some diversification. Separately, plant 2 relies a lot on automotive, right? So when automotive goes down to a screeching halt, plant 3 it is really affected by that. About 92% of their work in plant 3 is automotive. And you can see the rest of the locations. Plant 4 has a pretty nice even mix, but just under 50% into automotive. The next heaviest one in automotive besides plant 3 would be what we call 6.2, which is the gray iron part of plant 6 in Tennessee, which is very heavy into automotive. And one of the reasons that is because of the big shift in automotive. As the automakers shifted away from Detroit, they went to where? The Southeast, right? So we supply a lot of automakers in Tennessee, the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. Light vehicle market, just some examples of the light vehicle market. Some of the parts that we make, various engine components, suspension, driveline, and braking components, brake rotors and drums, crankshafts, differential cases. This is probably an interesting statistic as well. I talked a little bit about Toyota and how many parts we make for Toyota at the location in Tell City, Indiana. If you take a look at all of our plants together, brake rotors, we supply 73% of the brake rotor market, of the OEM market in the United States. So there is a darn good chance, about 75% chance that you've got a brake rotor from Waupaca Foundry on your car. Could be made right here at plant 1 or plant 3, or could be made at one of our other locations. About 31% of the drum market we have and 30% of the caliper market. We also serve the commercial vehicle market. Just some examples in the commercial vehicles. A lot of people know this as heavy trucks, your Class 8 semi-trucks. We serve the off-highway market. Here's another market, especially the green here, that's near and dear to Gary's heart. John Deere, as you saw in an earlier chart, is one of our largest customers. Over the years, John Deere chose to close down some of their foundries and source the majority of their work to Waupaca Foundry. We are their largest iron casting supplier. And we also serve the industrial market. This would be some of the products you see there, the boiler heating sections, parts for hydrants, electric pumps, and hydraulic components. This would be an example of a hot water heater boiler section. We played a part in Hurricane Sandy, just as an example of a hot water heater section. Had a lot of homes and businesses destroyed during the hurricane, so there was a lot of rebuilding going on and rebuilding, believe it or not, of the heating systems out there. So we produce parts for a lot of different customers that make these boiler housings, and we got slammed after Hurricane Sandy, and the customers said, "Hey, how quickly can you make us parts?" And of course we did it as quick as we can, and they were very happy. And that's a really good business for the Plant 2 side of the Plant 2-3 operation. So what's our difference between Waupaca Foundry and the competitors? The people is the biggest thing. We talked about that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But one of the other things is our equipment and the size of our operations. Our melt capacity is our melting capability is 80 to 150 tons in an hour, which means we produce at our plants over 9,500 tons of iron every day. So let's give you an example of that. Over 9,500 tons a day is more than the Eiffel Tower. So we melt more steel, iron, every day than is in the Eiffel Tower. Eiffel Tower is 7,400 tons. Another thing that you kind of makes you go, oh wow, it is a pretty big company. If Waupaca Foundry was a country, follow me on this. If Waupaca Foundry is a country, we would be the 3, 4, 5, 6, we would be the 8th largest country in the world in terms of iron casting production. So, in other words, we produce more than half, just at Waupaca Foundry, we produce more than half of all the iron castings that are produced in the entire country of Germany. And if you guys remember, there was a German company that owned us, but they still sold us. So, and we produce about half of all of Japan. And you take a look here, without Waupaca Foundry, the United States would be at 4.9 million metric tons, and we're at 1.5. So we're a pretty big chunk of all of the United States production. So the major processes involved in the production of iron castings are molding, core making, melting, and finishing. Waupaca Foundry specializes in the vertical molding process. Our people have learned how to modify and build their own equipment to fit our customers' needs. One of the things that our people have done is they've changed the mold sizes over the years to machines that are capable of producing castings to fit the type of, or producing machines that fit the type of castings we make. And we currently have 33 of these molding machines, more than anybody else, of course, in the world for this type of molding machines. Today, they're all called Waupaca-matics. They were called Diesel-matics, was the company that made this type of machine. And we changed them over the years, and currently all of the 33 have now been built by our very own people. The vast majority built right here in Waupaca by people that you guys know are building these molding molding equipment. So it's a good example of the ingenuity of our employees that's been promoted and nurtured throughout the years by Don and Cliff and their student Gary Tho. And that spirit and ingenuity is still alive today. The core is a solid piece of sand, another part of our process, that gets set inside a mold. Most often the core is used to produce the casting cavity. Our core rooms are built for high volume production work, and we're continuously looking at new ways to automate this process. The picture that you see here is a picture from our Marinette location, which has robots that are taking the cores out of the machine and assembling the cores and stacking them. It takes a lot of the manual labor out of the work for our employees. Our finishing rooms are also becoming more and more automated, but this is one area where we still do have a fair amount of labor, and that's really the next frontier for us in terms of making our foundries a less manual environment, although we have some pretty nice automation in those areas. Also, part of our difference is our commitment to quality. Of course, everybody says that. Every company that wants to sell castings say they're committed to quality, and we are, and we've got hours and hours and hours of training our employees in the quality casting production before they actually touch the parts. Waupaca Foundry safety programs are, I would say, they're reshaping what the historical image of the foundry is. We've developed a health and safety management system which relies on supervisor accountability, employee safety committees, workplace hazard assessment, equipment maintenance, and ongoing training. And our goal is to keep our skilled employees on the job safely at the foundry and allow them to return home safe to their families. All employees participate in behavior-based safety, in which coworkers observe each other and provide constructive feedback on safety procedures. Those objectives are integrated in daily safety meetings, and near misses are tracked. Each plant employs safety professionals and several plant nurses who respond to first aid, ergonomics issues, and other occupational health matters. The pictures that you see on these slides are part of our Foundry family. This is one of the promotions, if you will, that we have going on at the Foundry. Well, we've got these posters plastered throughout the plants that tell the employees, be safe, because we're waiting here at home for you. If you can't see those are pictures of our employees' families. Our employees' families submitted these pictures. Really neat pictures and very powerful, I think, when the employees are on their way to their workstations or on their way to break or on their way to go home. They see these posters and they see, wow, you know what? I do have my family and others waiting home for me. I'm going to make sure that I work safe today. Foundries are the ultimate recyclers. For generations, we've created new products out of recycled steel, scrap, and iron, and we reuse many of the raw materials used in creating castings. However, foundries are also pretty intensive businesses, and it's imperative that we keep finding smarter ways to use our natural resources. At Waupaca Foundry, we have a 10-year vision for sustainability with achievable goals. They are achievable, and we're achieving several of them already, for reducing our environmental impact. We want to reduce energy use intensity by 25%, promote alternative processes, and maintain state-of-the-art air pollution control technologies. We want to reduce our spent foundry sand by 30%, while still promoting the off-site reuse and recycling opportunities of our spent foundry materials. We want to achieve zero landfill disposal. Many of you guys have seen our products, our beneficial reuse projects in road use, and also if you've been to Swan Park, you see the sledding hill going up there. Really nice projects for our reusing our sand. We also plan to use, and we are well on our way for this, to reduce our water use consumption by 80%. We remelt and reuse more than 800,000 tons of metal annually. In 2009, we received the Governor's Award for Environmental Excellence. That was just at Plant 1 right across the river. For this project, the It was the industry-leading heat recovery system that was used for heating the facility throughout these cold Wisconsin winters. So that project, we figured, with some other efforts that we had, was the equivalent of removing approximately 3,200 passenger vehicles from U.S. highways from their emissions. Waupaca Foundry has a management system in place for health and safety, environmental management, and of course in quality and manufacturing at all of our locations. So for many of those reasons, we think this is why we've grown dramatically in a pretty competitive industry. Many of our competitors have left the market. They weren't able to keep up with environmental impact or environmental study or standards that are in place today. And Waupaca Foundry was able to do that. I promised I'd talk a little bit about the future. This is all you're going to get. It's about one slide. But this is our strategy. We want to be recognized as the leader in safety for the foundry industry. That's our number one goal. We want to promote sustainable processes and practices. We want to continue to improve our industry-leading position in quality and productivity through implementation of the Waupaca Way. The Waupaca Way is a takeoff of the Toyota Way, and it's another aspect of lean manufacturing. We plan to continue to grow organically and through capacity improvements achieved by upgrading molding machines and other automation products. We were really high on trying to say, okay, we're going to have another greenfield facility or something of that nature. We decided that we may not have to actually build another plant if we just make the improvements that we have planned for all of our existing plants will be the equivalent of building another brand new plant. So that's first on our list. And we're going to look at sensible international growth through acquisitions and joint ventures. So one of the things we're possibly looking at is growing internationally. So those are some of our growth opportunities that I just went through. So again, the biggest thing that makes a difference for us is employees dedicated to working together with our customers to produce the very best iron castings in the world. So, I am Waupaca Foundry. Who else? Jim, you're Waupaca Foundry. Gary's Waupaca Foundry. We got other Waupaca Foundry people in here. Who's all worked at Waupaca Foundry? Harry. How you doing, Harry? We worked together at Plant 1 for many years. All right. So, anybody who's ever worked at Waupaca Foundry, we say they are Waupaca Foundry. They're part of the Waupaca Foundry legacy. And before we have time do I have time for a 5-minute video, or do I need to shut this down?
Just 5 minutes, we have a very short.
All right. I think you'll like this. I do.
This place is like an old oak. It's there. It's always there.
Waupaca Foundry's legacy is that we're constantly growing. We're constantly investing in our workforce.
We're at the top of our game here.
This is our legacy.
It's our legacy.
It's our legacy.
It's our legacy.
It's our legacy.
Waupaca Foundry is a team. It's a team of dedicated individuals who are all joined together under a common goal. They're a group of people that are highly knowledgeable. They understand the industry. They understand the trends.
Our employees really take pride in their jobs.
They have a very strong work ethic. They believe in what they're doing. I'd say innovation is the legacy of Waupaca Foundry. The ability to accomplish almost anything.
What I've seen over the years is just incredible.
The growth in technology and automation and the improvements in the process, I would have never dreamed we're doing some of the things that we're doing now.
It really comes down to the people and just our culture. We want people to enjoy working here. We want them to have a sense of pride.
I couldn't imagine doing anything else other than this. This job allows me to be part of a team that follows a part through scrap metal being melted into the pouring casting process, shakeout, and then removing gating and risers in the mill room. It's very rewarding to see the end result at the end of the day. Provide a great living for my family that allows me to be home each and every night.
It's well known that Waupaca takes care of its people.
It's a good company, and they do a lot for us with bonuses, and our insurance is nice. It's best in the area. You can't beat that.
They've been there for me. They put me through schooling.
They have a lot of training programs. You're going to go improve yourself. Let us help. That's what makes Waupaca Foundry leading in our area.
That reinforces to your workforce that the company believes in their people.
This company does promote within, and it's a very neat aspect of this place.
You've got people who have had their hands on the product, understand the process.
I started out as a core setter, learned what was going on around me. I got promoted up to servicing a line, and then from there to team leader. Actually transferred and got promoted to foreman.
Started at an entry-level position within this company, worked hard, people noticed, started moving up.
I got involuntary recalled back into the Marine Corps for a year. Then when I came back, they offered me a team leader position. The year after that, a supervisor position.
My career here at Waupaca has taken me in a lot of different directions. It's allowed me to lead a quality of life that, quite honestly, I never dreamed I could.
It's our legacy. It's our legacy.
They're proud of what they do, and they're proud to go home to their families and tell them, I work at Waupaca Foundry.
We have an open door policy. If you're the sweeper driver or the plant manager, you can go see one of the executives in the company. You can voice your opinion and it will be heard.
It comes down to employee empowerment.
It brings a level of attitude and ambition.
You got to really be self-motivated because it is fast-paced and you get out what you put in.
Every day we're striving for continuous improvement.
I'm working for somebody that wants to be the best.
That's something that's always been a part of the culture.
We fight hard to make everything better for everybody. From safety, quality, productivity, it doesn't matter.
All the way up from the guys in the shop to the top management.
And that's what Waupaca is. It's a bunch of like-minded people who come to work every day to try to make our company better.
We want to deliver this high-quality casting to our customers. We wanted to take into consideration the environment and the safety of the workers that work at our company.
Where Waupaca excels is they're really good at giving back.
That's immeasurable. I don't even know if I can quantify the impact that this company's had on my community.
It's not just one person that makes Waupaca Foundry what it is. It's the combination of all our employees.
It's our legacy.
It's our legacy. I am part of the legacy.
Our legacy is that small, close-knit workforce and a real commitment to doing the job right, which in turn secures the future for all of us.
I found a career here, and I plan on staying as long as they'll have me.
It's impacted every facet of my life. It's been instrumental in my development as a person.
This is the place that I plan on retiring from.
We're getting bigger now, we're global. Where does it end? I don't know.
The legacy of Waupaca Foundry is all about opportunity. The company gives you a chance to come in, will actually help educate you, give you a job, and let you climb within, and you can have that American dream.
I get excited about it. So it's been quite a story, I think, and we believe it's a story that couldn't have been made anywhere else except for Waupaca, Wisconsin, and we did it all without votes. So we got a minute for questions? Yes. Jim might want to join me for questions.
And I assume that the 4, 5, and 6 foundries were built because of their closeness to resources?
A lot of it has to do with resources, and Jim was involved in most of those the placement of those locations, so I'll let him talk about that.
A lot of it had to do with markets. Gary can tell you that we had a lot of transportation costs into some of our castings, and so we would try to locate them near other customers. We also had a concern for a long time about you can get too big in one spot, and although I don't know we feel that way anymore, at one time we did. So yeah, if we look, when we go someplace, we're looking at the labor force, looking at how close we are to our customers, and look at the community too. We always try to find a community that was something like Waupaca. None of those plants you'll find in a large city somewhere.
Where does most of the Waupaca resources come from? That come in by train? From where?
Well, we get most of our scrap, I believe, is trucked in.
Yeah.
And then we have sand. We have two important ingredients that we need is scrap metal. It can't be any scrap metal. It has to be metal that's been treated in certain way. And then sand, and it can't be any sand. It has to be sand that fits our needs. So those are two of the most key issues we supply.
A lot of the metal is pretty local to our plants. I mean, it's not like we're shipping metal across the country. The scrap metal, it's sometimes within a couple of county area.
It is, that's true, but it's kind of a worldwide competition situation because the scrap metal that would be coming here end up going someplace else. So it is a world market, but like Joey says, it is mostly from this area. Jack?
I just wanted to be sure it was explicitly said by us that the Foundry does everything you've said, and also its people serve on our boards in the town, on our committees, they're generous with their contributions, and the give back to the community is always noticed by us, and we should say that so you don't have to, but we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim.
I wanted to make that comment that Jack made is we really appreciate the Foundry's involvement with the sculpture that's going to be made by the Foundry and installed in South Park next summer.
That's a really neat project. Thanks for letting us be involved in it too. That's cool.
And it involved a lot of people in the community who made individually cast metal tiles, and it was of their story. And they're going to be put together in a sculpture and permanently installed in South Park. So thank you very much.
You bet. That's a great project. Thanks. Yes.
I had a question about your competition. I noticed that you say you have about 31% of the market in some of the major products that you manufacture. Of course, it varies with the product. Is your toughest competition China or India or United States or what?
It's a good question. The question
how do you compete with them?
The question is where is our toughest competition from? Is it from other foundries here in the U.S. or is it from other countries? And I think the answer to that is yes. I mean, because it was for some time, not that long ago, it was China was really big competition for us. As a matter of fact, they still have a lot of the aftermarket brake rotor business in China, but the playing field is leveling a little bit. Chinese wages, for example, are coming up dramatically, and the cost to ship to the U.S. is risen. But China still has some competition. India is competitive with us, and then there are really a couple of players in North America that are competitive with us. We're in terms of sales dollars, the largest by far. You know, we said we're 1.8. I think our next nearest competitor is about 1 billion.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't think you addressed the economic impact. You've got a lot of people working and they are getting salaries, but you also have some, what is the term, ancillary industries that the people that are working here to produce things for the factory, workforce that are not employed by the foundry, but by somebody who counts on the foundry. Have you got numbers on that?
Well, because we try not to, the question is here is what the economic impact of Waupaca Foundry is on the community, not just from the wages that the employees get, but from the overall impact. And I think because we really don't spend a lot of time trying to run around with our Waupaca Foundry flag, although it might seem like it tonight, right? We actually we never really did much of a study on that until recently. The UW Extension in the Waupaca County Economic Development helped us take a look at that. And we do have some numbers of that. And I don't think I brought them with me tonight because we talked about maybe talking about it. And I said, you know, we don't even really have time to talk about everything. And I don't really know if I want to say, hey, this is how great we are. But it is north of 10% of every dollar spent in Waupaca County is directly tied to Waupaca Foundry.
Say that again.
More than 10% of every dollar spent in Waupaca County is directly tied to Waupaca Foundry.
And then of course that's respent.
Right.
We do have like the 1,600 people we have in Waupaca. The Waupaca zip code, about half of them is right in the city proper.
Right.
And then if that doesn't really tell the story because this community really goes out all around and includes Iowa and a number of other places. But you know, if the average family is 4 people, that's quite significant.
Yeah, think about it. The size of Waupaca is 6,000 people, and we employ 1,650 of them. You know, here at the Foundry. So, it's a good question. If you want some actual statistics, call me. I got them all sitting on my desk. I'd love to tell you, but.
Let's give them a big hand.